everybody. All right, excited to be here. Thank you for all being on time. We love that, don't we, Jonathan?
We do. Thank you for being here. Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Emma, as well. This is a great audience. Fantastic.
Please feel free to turn on your cameras, but please mute your microphones. That'd be awesome. And yeah, let us know where you're tuning in from. And I see we've got Scotland in the house. We've got Florida in the house.
We've got from Chatham, New Jersey.
Chatham, New Jersey. Please get active in the chat box. Really excited you're investing this time and excited to get started. So please let us know in the chat box. Let us know. Type it in. I'm going to be asking lots of chat box questions. So yeah, whether you're a coach, whether you're a parent, whether you're a student athlete, we've got Greece in the house. Look at that, Jonathan.
That's fantastic. Fantastic. Welcome. And San Diego, the West Coast. Nice.
Yeah. Thanks, Carol. Thanks for checking in, and make sure you let us know as well. Oh, Glasgow. I love it. Geraldine, you absolute legend. Thank you for being here. Thank you, everybody. Fantastic. All right. Well, we are also live on the Centercourt Facebook channel, which is exciting. So yeah. Oh, and Melbourne. Thank you for getting up early. Good old, I miss Melbourne. So my home country. I love it. So yeah, feel free to leave your cameras on or up to you. But yeah, the format, Jonathan will introduce this session in a moment, but basically I'm going to be presenting for about 40 minutes, and then it's open Q&A. And it's all the next 45 minutes of our life that we'll all never get back. So let's have a great time together. So thank you for checking in and letting us know where you're checking in from. Jonathan, over to you.
Okay. So I'm going to keep my part here very short, but I just want to welcome everybody. On behalf of Centercourt, I'm the Director of Operations for the Centercourt 360 program, which is a program that we run here in Centercourt supporting our student athletes with the after-school program and remote learning program for students who are not going to school in person. And we've got some other exciting programs too. So I hope everybody is interested and engaged with the 360 program. Lots of information on our website as well. But I won't go on about that. We're here for Emma, and Emma is a fantastic, famous tennis coach and motivational speaker and friend of 360. So welcome, Emma, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. It's absolutely true that I've been working now with Centercourt that do an incredible job in multiple sports, but really investing in the holistic approach to student athlete welfare as well as parent education. And I've certainly run the Empower Hour for them, and I'm excited to be a part of continuing education with the 360 program. So look, I'm going to share my screen now, and I'm going to get started on this presentation, which we have called COVID Confidence. So I'm just sharing my screen now. And thumbs up, Jonathan, if you can see my screen. Are we all good to go, mate? You're all, yeah, double thumbs up. We love that. I love double checking, making sure that you can see my screen. But please feel free to get active in the chat box. I'm going to definitely multitask, letting people in the waiting room as well as doing the slideshow. And of course, let me just let people in the waiting room. There's another 7 in there. So I'm just going to admit all of those right now and continue to welcome you all to COVID Confidence. What's within your control? It's an interesting title. I know that it's a bit of an oxymoron, the old COVID and confidence, bit of a double whammy there. And I hope that that's why you're all here, and that you're all interested in how we can impact our student athletes. If you're a coach, and if you are a student athlete, hopefully, again, you'll be walking away with some tools to be able to add into your coaching toolkit, your playing toolkit, whatever that might be. So welcome, everybody. I wanted to start out with a quick story, if I may. And that is a story of when I worked with some elite teams. I do a lot of work in values and visions for teams. And this one particular team, I don't know if the Americans have heard of the sport of netball, but it's pretty popular in Europe and certainly in Australia. And so the first question that I asked this elite Scottish netball team was, what are your superpowers? And of course, I thought that was a pretty basic, straightforward question. This is an elite team. And, you know, I was really shocked and surprised that they really struggled with that question. So these are elite athletes. These are young adults. And often what would happen, they would say, oh, I don't know, is it maybe I'm, you know, really good at my agility, or I'm really good at passing, or I'm really good at my teamwork or something. But they'd always say maybe, or they'd say, I guess, or I think I'm good at this. And so it was really, they'd be almost looking to others for validation. And so basically I was really surprised that, you know, I thought to myself, if this elite team was struggling with the concept of having superpowers, imagine what student athletes who are battling, you know, the emotional roller coaster of being a teenager, and, you know, people that maybe represent their local level or their state level, let alone their country. So I really started thinking about this concept of confidence. And I really became fascinated in how we approach it, because it's a little bit, is it the cart before the horse or the horse before the cart? Because as we know, to play, you know, when you play well, you get confident. And then on the flip side of that, as you can imagine, you need to play well to be confident. So it's a bit of the horse before the cart, or the cart before the horse. And so today I want to mystify some of that. And what I'm going to do at the end of the webinar, if you stay with me, is I'm going to tell you what happened to this team and what we ended up doing to bring out their superpowers. So there's a little carrot to say, I hope you stay on the webinar, and I hope you stay with us to find out what actually happened and the strategies and the tools that we use to be able to unleash their potential and their performance. So hopefully that's why you're here, to add practical tools into your coaching or into your playing strategy, and to be able to unleash your own confidence within yourself. So that's the goal of today, and I wanted to start with that short story there. Okay, so let's begin first with a couple of definitions. And, you know, again, we've all got different definitions. And I have to say, the number one thing that I get asked over and over again by parents is, oh, if only my child was more confident. Can you just help them be more confident? It's like, you know, people have described confidence as this ball of energy that you either have it or you don't, as we sort of mentioned before. My take on it is a little bit like Shrek. I'm sure some of you may have seen the movie, and the famous line where Donkey's asking Shrek about the personality of ogres. And he says, I won't try and do the accent, but he basically says ogres are a lot like onions. They have lots and lots of layers. And the way that I see confidence, you can see from that next picture, is pretty much like an onion. Right in the middle of that onion there, you've certainly got 3 distinct inner core superpowers. And then you're building layer upon layer upon layer. And when you do that by building your layers, then essentially that's how you build your self-esteem. And then over time, that self-esteem gives you that confidence. So, you know, it's very much the Shrek principle that I always come back to. And you can only build those layers upon layer upon layer upon layer if you have practical tools and strategies that you can call upon. So that is, again, as I said, very much the goal of this webinar. And one formula that I know that the Centercourt tennis program has found really beneficial is what I call the confidence formula. So perhaps at the end of this screen, you may want to take a photo of this screen. And this is over years and years of coaching. I'm now, maybe I don't look that old, but this is my 30th year in the coaching world. I did start coaching when I was 14, so maybe I've just given away my age there, but doesn't really matter. I wear my heart on my sleeve. This is who I am. And this formula really, really does work. And that is confidence equals time plus experience. And then I'm about to tell you what it's divided by. We'll get to that in just a minute, but let's unpack that formula as you see it in this format right now. So you can't make Monday go any quicker than Tuesday and go any quicker than Wednesday. Time is time. We can't short circuit time. Yes, we can certainly have quality practice, and quality practice definitely means, you know, what you're spending your time on. So, you know, again, if you're focused on like dedicated practice to what's going to help you improve as a student or as an athlete, that can certainly help with time. But essentially, you can't make time go any faster. Over time, you will become more confident because of your experience. Then, plus experience, okay, what we're talking about here is other people's experience. So the fact that you've actually invested, again, this time in this webinar, especially live, what you're doing is you're tapping into potentially high performance experience as a coach that I have over the last 30 years. And you're saying, hey, if I could take that one tool and add it into my playing toolkit or my coaching toolkit or my parenting toolkit or my student athlete toolkit, then what I could do is I can short circuit time. That's why I love this formula. Confidence equals time plus experience. There is a lot of research to suggest when we behavioral model, so when we model somebody else's behavior, then we can imagine ourselves in that position. That is how we short circuit time in the formula. And now for the drum roll, this is what I want you to take a photo of, is what the formula is divided by, and that is a positive attitude. Now, this whole webinar is about looking at what's within our control. So you've got the confidence formula there. Now, if you divide that, again, by the latest research, which says that our verbal persuasion is what they would say in the psychology literature, is about reinforcing from multiple different voices something that you're doing well. Whatever you're doing well, if you can really focus on that, it's going to help with your confidence. Okay, so two little pieces of the latest research within this formula. I promise you, this is like a gold medal little nugget for you to be able to go, okay, what are the things that maybe I need to spend more time on? Or who can I contact or buy a coffee at their convenience to learn from their experience? And how can I strengthen my positive inner voice? Because let's be honest, folks, 60,000 thoughts a day, 60,000 thoughts a day, and 80% of those are negative. Not to mention the word, of course, COVID. Okay, let's touch on it briefly. I've set us up. When you think of the word COVID, we think negatively. We think about, my goodness, everything in the world that's going on right now. There's so much chaos, there's so much turmoil, and we tend to go straight to the negative. And I'm not saying that that's not fair enough. I'm not. But what I am saying is, what if, as it relates to our confidence, if we could redefine COVID? What if we could take it and say, hey, what does it mean to us? What can I control? Because at the moment, there's a lot of things out of our control. And I love this picture. I'll touch on it later, but let's be honest. Everything is subtly changing all the time. That's not because of COVID. That's our life. That is the way the world is happening and going. There's nothing we can do about it. So really, it's our outlook of saying, okay, what can I control and what can I really embrace? So that's where we're heading. So, you know, I love an acronym. Those who know me, I love an acronym. How can we flip it on its head and say, what can it otherwise mean to us? So at this point, on that note, in the chat box, feel free, if you wanted to say, if you could redefine COVID just right now, before I even get into my little acronym strategies, what could it actually mean to you? I'm going to pull up my little chat box here. Like, is there a word that comes to mind? Or is there something else that you could say, hey, you know what? This is what it means to me right now, as I open the chat box up here. And and see if I can have a look at what some of our answers are. Yeah, what else could it mean? Yeah, thanks. I love it, Geraldine. Time with myself. It's actually given us back the importance of, are we spending enough time with ourselves? Maybe even Geraldine even knew what the first strategy is going to be. She's one step ahead of us. I love it. But yeah, feel free, as I said, anything as we're going, just to throw it in the chat box to say, what else could it mean if we to redefine it? Rethinking our approach to things, having a change of plan. Absolutely love it. My goal now is to just share 5 practical things and concepts for you to actually redefine what it means to you and how that impacts our confidence. Slowing down. Fantastic. Thank you, everybody, for giving us some insights there into the chat box. All right. So the letter C, what else could it mean? Okay. Care. Self-care. I used to fly a lot. I haven't flown in ages. I actually really miss it. But as we know, what do they say? Please put your oxygen mask on first before helping others. The one thing that comes up time and time again when I work with a lot of student athletes, they're busy. And not to mention parents, busy. You're so scheduled. Kids today are so scheduled. And so we're so busy doing things for others that we forget about what we need. What do we need to replenish ourselves? Let's not forget sleep. Sleep is still by far, I've done ice baths, I've done all sorts of recovery methods, but sleep is still number one. And so important that we monitor, especially for student athletes, where their mobile phone is overnight, so that we can ensure and we can make sure that they're getting the full amount of sleep that they need for their health and their recovery. So put your oxygen mask on first, but more importantly, know what you need. I love the concept of smell the roses, being able to just stop. When you get out of bed in the morning, just connect with the ground. One thing I do every morning that's a real self-care sort of routine for me is 3 gratitudes, handwritten in my journal. Boom, that's the first thing I do before I look at my mobile phone, because I know it sets me up and sets my mindset up for a day of at least starting the day with some care for what's important, and even my vision for the day with my list, which we'll get to as well in one of the strategies. So go ahead now in the chat box. Again, I invite you, and I'm going to pop one of my favorite things to do here in the chat box, which is hiking. Here in Colorado, hiking is, very, very therapeutic. I find it, it's a way of being back. It's a way of myself having self-care. But what do you do for you? So that would be, I'd love to just see some great ideas on what you consider to be self-care. What are the 3 gratitudes? So this morning, the gratitude, honestly, I'm moving house, so it was for a roof over my head. I'm very grateful for a roof over my head. I'm grateful for my cat for just jumping on top of me and making me smile. And I'm grateful to Centercourt and this opportunity to present this webinar. So they were the 3 gratitudes. Tomorrow there'll be something different. It's what comes up for me each day. So we've got yoga, we've got running, we've got walk in the woods, fantastic, pets, absolutely, time to read books. Know what works for you, okay? And self-care is really important, especially with everything that's going on in the world at the moment. Walking, meditating, fantastic. Oh, great. Thank you, Paul. Great to see you online. Thanks for getting up early down under. All right. So what does the next letter stand for? O, organization. Now, again, you might say, Emma, nothing new here. This is I've heard this all before, but let's be honest. I'm fascinated by what the research says about entrepreneurs and what they have in common, because that's all I've ever known. I've always worked for myself, so I'm always curious about behavioral modeling. What are these other entrepreneurs doing during COVID? And one thing that I read really recently that resonated is the fact that on Sunday night, they do a handwritten to-do list, okay? And that was something that they had in common, because at the end of the day, ticking something off and physically actually ticking off your to-do list is very, very empowering. And the fact, if you've handwritten it, guess what? If you haven't done it in that week, you have to rewrite it out again. That's pretty annoying to have to rewrite something. Imagine that. Now, I know that might be a bit far-fetched. I know there's probably a lot of student athletes on this call that think, no way, I want to be able to put it in my smartphone. Go for it. But just make sure when you do your list for the next week, you have to retype it. So it's a little bit annoying if you haven't actually achieved it that week. But that is something that they have in common. And being able to, with all the athletes that I work with my mindset program, they have daily tasks, really small tasks, but they have to physically tick them off their task list. And being able to do that and being able to control what's within your control and being able to tick that off, that is the most empowering thing. And again, maybe I'm Generation X and maybe some of you may not relate to this strategy, but the highlighter is the greatest feeling in the world when I've written down 30 things and, you know, when you see 80% of them highlighted, I personally love it. So again, that might not work for you. Find your own strategy. This isn't about copy me. This is about, if this is what other successful people do, is that something that you could adopt as it relates to organization? All right, I'm going to share the next one, and then I'll pause there to see if we have any questions. The V, there's lots of things that I could have put down here, but I felt that versatility was really, really important to mention here. And I love the old quote here we've got, it's not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change. So when we're talking about versatility, make no mistake about it, we are talking about emotional flexibility. We are talking about being able to adapt. And I get that the teenage years are the most turbulent emotional years that you can have, but really being able to understand what is going on for you and being able to adapt to change, be versatile, be emotionally flexible is really important. And, you know, let's be honest, the statistic says that 90% of the population would rather die than change. Are you kidding me? Isn't that crazy? I'm still am gobsmacked by that statistic. It still amazes me that is the case. Now, no one on this call, of course, is part of that 90% because otherwise you wouldn't be here, okay? But essentially, how can, when your normal is completely different, how can you be emotionally flexible? Now, this goes beyond just your physical environment. When somebody has a conversation with you and they see the world completely different to you, how can you be emotionally flexible? Show some empathy, listen with all your senses, and really try and understand what's going on for this person in that moment, to be able to understand a different perspective or a diverse perspective. Then I think that's really what's going to help us through this period and come out the other side being more confident in our ability to be able to understand different maps of the world, because let's be honest, we all have different maps of the world. So I'm going to pause there. Jonathan, I don't know if you want to unmute yourself and talk about anything that's resonated at this point, or if there's any questions that have come up in the chat box. What are your thoughts so far?
You know, I totally agree with what you said about versatility in particular, because not to get into my own biography, but I'm new to Centercourt, and I came here because my old job ended because of COVID. And in fact, the whole industry that I worked in ended because I worked in events. So there are no more gatherings of people. And even though there were fabulous events that happened when people were gathering, that's just not something that happens anymore. And it may not happen for a long time. So, you know, the ability to kind of pivot is the word that I was using.
Yeah.
Is absolutely, the Darwin quote could not resonate more strongly to me.
Yeah, it's a great quote, isn't it? Charles Darwin. I really love that one. Thank you for that. All right, so moving on to the next strategy. And this one I think is probably what some of my student athletes have found to be the most useful. And that the I stands for identity. And what I want to talk about here, and I hope this really, parents on board, I hope that they really hear this one, and that is the fact that we label people all the time. I've got a number of student athletes who, you know, I'd say, what do you do? They say, I am a tennis player. Okay. And the parent would say that my firstborn, you know, they're the soccer player, my secondborn is the musical one, and my thirdborn is the, you know, is the tennis player. And so they would already put these labels almost on the child. So you can imagine even this year when your whole season doesn't even happen, or sport's been completely taken away from you. So you go from being, I am a tennis player, to, tennis is, I can't even compete. I know certainly in Australia, you know, we're still in Melbourne, there's stage 4 lockdown happening. I mean, they can't even get out of the house beyond 5 kilometres, let alone play tennis. So when that's taken away from you, I love how we can flip the I am statements. And if we can reframe, rather than I am a tennis player, into I choose to play tennis, all of a sudden you've got control just by that reframing of that one word, which is choose. I choose to play tennis, or I choose to study, or I choose to pursue my, you know, my music. And then what we do with the I am statements is, which relates back to, remember, superpowers, is then you can tap into things that are within your control. I am patient. I am dedicated. I am resilient. So these are things that then maybe they're behaviors that you want to add to who you are, or you fundamentally believe that that's who you are. But that is the secret to building confidence. Be so mindful of choosing an I am statement with things that are out of your control. And I've had a lot of success just with this statement alone, a massive shift for a professional tennis player that I was working with. When the aha moment, when she dropped, the penny dropped and went, I'm not my sport. I play tennis. Yes, I'm a professional athlete, but that's not who I am. Who I am is actually I'm bubbly, I'm fun loving. And I think they, if I'm remembering correctly, there was one more quality that they're her words. And that was a really huge shift for her with regards to I am. So I hope that one resonated with some of you out there. And of course, you know, I'm going to ask you to take action in the chat box. What could you put down? You know, so for example, one thing I'm going to put down would definitely be I am energy. It could be I have empathy, or I am resilient, or I am learning. Yeah, awesome. I'm persistent. Awesome. Thank you so much. People engaging there. It's, you know, because they're your superpowers. I'm curious. I'm enthusiastic. Absolutely fantastic. They're all things that we can help our athletes. And remember, when I use the word athletes, I'm not just talking about student athletes. I'm also talking about adult athletes that you might be working with. I'm planning for a different future, which taps into that versatility again, as well as being emotionally flexible. So there's really so many things you can do with the I am statement, and it's so important to be mindful of it. And finally, I wanted to share the last strategy, and that's the letter D, and it stands for drive. Now, why did I pick drive? Well, when we look at the number one reason why people drop out of things, not just sport, we're talking about maybe they enroll in a course and then they drop out. What's the one thing? It's they lose the desire, the passion, the original connection of why they started potentially playing that sport in the first place, which connects then automatically to purpose and drive. I love the word drive. The reason I love it is because once you reconnect with that desire, that passion, and that energy of why did you start doing that in the first place? Why did you start studying? Why did you start playing tennis in the first place? When you reconnect to the essence of the sport, I always talk about being in service to the sport, then essentially what you're doing is you're reconnecting with your purpose, which makes it easier for you to train. It makes it easier for you to get up in the morning. It makes it easier for you to get organized, pack your own bag, get yourself, have the fuel that you need for the day. And that's going to give you the drive to take action. I'm all about taking action. Nothing happens unless we take action. We can procrastinate all day long, but drive is linked with actually moving forwards. It's courage which lives a lot in the gut, and taking action is about taking that step forward, which relates to drive. So let's, I wonder in the chat box, who could be the first person to type in what the letter C stood for originally? First person. Let's see who it is in the chat box. First person. Oh, love it. Thank you. Oh, they're all coming in. I just love seeing all the answers come up. I just okay, yeah, that was a little bit of fun, a little bit of gamification there thrown in, but I love that you're all just quick to type it in there. So thank you so much. Care. So in summary, care, organization, versatility, identity, and drive. If you think about all those 5 things, they are actually within your control, the other C word, okay? And that is what today is about, because each of those strategies, and especially the story that I'm going to close this webinar out with, is within our control, which impacts our confidence. Because remember, confidence equals time plus, first person in the chat box, what's the confidence formula? Confidence equals time plus experience. Absolutely. Thank you. And divided by anyone? Ferris Bueller. That's for the student athletes that need to see a brilliant movie. Positive attitude, exactly, which again is within our control. It's that strengthening of that inner voice that I'm huge about discussing. All right, before I close out the story, to give you one practical strategy, especially as it relates to superpowers and identity, I'm gonna ask you to take action. I'm gonna ask you to have a little game plan, and I've gone with the Olympics. Often I go with 15, 30, 40 game, but today I'm going for a bronze medal. So remember, you can just do one of these things, or you can do all 3 to win your game of life. One thing that you could do in the next 24 hours for you, the fact that you've come on this webinar, it's a recalibration of your COVID confidence to say, what can I do for me? If I put my oxygen mask on first, what is it that I need to recalibrate? Do I need to be more patient with my partner? Do I need to have a conversation with my son or my daughter? As a coach, what is it that you need to do for you before you can be the best coach that you can be for your bronze medal? For your silver medal, what's something that you could do for one of your players in the next 7 days, or a teammate? Or again, if you're a parent, what's something that you can do for maybe someone within your family? Okay, how can you act on one of these strategies? This webinar might have triggered one thought that you could take action on. And finally, now this is definitely the 6th human need, and not everyone's going to go for the gold medal, but what's something you could do for your community? Maybe someone in your community that you need to pick up the phone, you need to reach out, they're struggling, that perhaps even talking about this webinar might help them. What's something that you could do for your community? Or feel free to do all 3 to, of course, win your own game of life. Now, I'll never know whether you did it, but just out of interest, feel free to throw in the chat box there. Are you going to go for bronze, silver, or gold, or are you going to go for the whole game and win that game of life? Feel free to certainly put that in the chat box and let me know what you're going to take action on. Are you going to do one little thing for you? The bronze at least. I love it. Silver, and go for gold. I've changed try to go for gold there, Rashad. Thank you. Going for gold. I love it. Absolutely, Joe. You do so much for the community, and I know that everyone appreciates you. I was on the phone this morning to Scotland talking about you. So there you go. All right. So that is the game plan for this webinar, and so in closing, I'd like to now, of course, ask you, remember, go back to the original Shrek concept. How can you stretch your comfort zone? So remember, only 10% of the population can jump out of their comfort zone and just throw themselves in the deep end, but usually their confidence sinks. It doesn't often swim unless you're looking at about 10% of the population. So think stretch. What's one little thing you could do for yourself? As somebody wrote in the chat box, you're going to go for bronze at least. That's just taking a small step. That is just stretching one layer at a time, like the Shrek concept. And just really in this time right now, every single day when you do your organizational checkbox list, ask yourself, what can you control? Because the controllables you can highlight, you can tick them off, and there's nothing that feels more rewarding than that. So okay, I promise I'm getting to the end of my original story. I know that you're all hanging on the edge of your chair wanting to know about the elite Scottish netball team. But before I do, I'd love to share what's next with Centercourt and what's coming up. So definitely we've got the email there at the top, pretty easy to remember, 360@centercourt.com for all inquiries as we unleash the performance code. So we're going to be doing small groups with Centercourt. These are going to be really small one-on-one sessions designed to really become more emotionally intelligent as a student athlete or as an athlete or as a coach. But we're focusing on your reality, which is self-awareness, values, and your emotional intelligence. We're going to be focusing on your performance as it relates to your decision-making, your self-image, and your passion. And finally, your connection with your school, your relationships, and of course, your sport. So that is the performance code. And if anyone's interested in wanting to know more about the performance code, please just send 360@centercourtclub.com an email, and you will be able to find out more about when that course is launching, which is going to definitely cover those 9 modules in small group sessions. So that's coming soon, as well as we've got individual tutoring available as well. So Jonathan will happily get back to you or Rob on any of those questions you might have about the performance code for one of your student athletes that we have coming up soon. So I'm excited about that. All right, so back to the Scottish netball team. So this is just a little testimonial there by the CEO who spoke about, again, notice the language there about stretching the comfort zone and helping athletes find their superpowers. Now, I know you're all sitting on the edge of your chair to know how we did this, because at the start I was like, wow, this is amazing that they were really struggling with this concept. The middle of the onion, being able to identify 3 or 4 superpowers was really a struggle. So how we did this, and you may want to write this down. Who I am is the possibility of. Then you insert your 3 superpowers, and then you close it out by saying, and that is who I am. Now, if you're working with a player, or this is your son or your daughter, if you're a parent listening in here today, that is by far one of the most powerful strategies that relates to identity, that relates to superpowers, that relates to confidence, the middle of that onion, inserting those 3 core superpowers. And especially, I do a lot of work in female empowerment. They struggle to find more than one superpower. They struggle with the word superpower. So again, reframe it by saying, who I am is the possibility of energy, empathy, and enjoyment. And that is who I am. Now, those E factors, they're my superpowers. As you can see, I've said that sentence once or twice before, but I did learn it when I was in my young, sort of early 20s. That's that sentence there, and it's been one of the most impactful sentences around confidence and identity that I've ever had the pleasure of delivering in workshops and learning myself. I never practice something that I don't preach and believe in. So that is that certainly I wanted to share that was one of the ways that we were able to work with that team. And they had to stand up in front of all their teammates, and they had to share that concept and that sentence with their teammates. And you could imagine we have the team then say those back to you. Yes, that is who you are. And remember their superpowers, so that what they can bring to the table. All right, so I'm going to shop. I'm going to not go shopping just yet. I'm going to stop, not shop, sharing my screen. And now would be a great time for me to open it up now to questions and open it up. Jonathan, I'll probably start with you while people feel free to put your questions in the chat box. Actually, we have one already. So I'm just going to repeat. Actually, I'll type it in the chat box if anyone's wondering about that identity strategy. I'll type it in potentially as Jonathan if you want to just share some reflections of what you heard, and if there's a question that resonates, and then I open it up to questions as I type in this strategy.
Okay, I'm going to talk since Emma's typing. And actually, I did have a reflection, which is that the core values, what I couldn't help thinking when you were talking about having core values, it's identifying a limited number of things, not everything. And I think one of the things that I find myself doing a lot is, just being distracted by other things. Like, so I almost feel like finding and defining your core values is as much about what they aren't as it is about what they are. Emma, do you agree with that? Is that something that you think about when people are trying to figure out what their core strengths are? Is it as much about what they aren't as it is about what they are?
Yeah, it's again, that's the cart before the horse, or the horse before the cart. So I call that your three core inner superpowers. One can be one that you feel like you already own, and one can be imagining as if.
Okay.
So that's something you want to add to who you are. Now, if you don't have any tools on how to, let's say I want to be more patient, but I actually have no strategies on that, then that's the onion layer. That's the first layer around the onion. So that's where you would contact somebody who you think is brilliant at patience and ask them for a strategy. Or potentially, I could give you one right now, with regards to more patience. A great question is just when somebody says something and say, I wonder what's going on for this person right now. That's it. That's an exercise. That's a practical strategy in patience. So that might be the next layer in the onion. And then once you practice that, you can then maybe add that into the onion, into the three core superpowers within the onion, and have your players, have your students draw the onion and draw out those, it looks like a bit of a peace symbol, which we need lots of that in the world right now. So, have those three core superpowers relate to that. But certainly values drive behavior. And just going back to that team, one thing we did is we did a whole session on values, and they were the CANs, which stood for commitment, ambition, and we flipped the N upside down to be the U for unity. So right, commitment, ambition, and unity, and that is who they were as a team. And then everybody brought their superpowers to the table. So that was how you really saw in that testimonial there how we unlocked that whole process for that particular team, which I thought fitted really nicely into this webinar. So
great.
Great. Any questions in the chat box, or does anyone want to turn on their video and unmute themselves and ask a question? Please feel free.
Hiya. So I would ask you a question. Yeah. So one of the things that partly what Jonathan said there as well about distraction. So one of the things that superpowers that I would love, because as you know, I've at my crazy age I've gone back to university to study, and one of the superpowers I would love to have is focus. Now, when I get into my studies, I get into sociology, particularly in the moment. But then all of a sudden I find something else and this distraction appears. So I know you're really good at this because we've done this many times before. How do you flip that then? And I guess it's the same if you're on a court playing tennis and you see someone in the court next to you, like, oh my goodness, their forehand's better than mine. How do you get that superpower? How do you get that focus cape on then?
Yeah. Yeah. Again, there's so many different strategies. So first of all, thank you for your brilliant question. And I definitely say that number one, you have to really look at your personality and, first of all, some of the reasons behind why you're getting distracted. I know with kids today, with online learning, the biggest distraction, as we know, is notifications. So I'm a huge fan of creating little folders on your phone so you can't actually see notifications. Because the next thing you know, once we click on that notification, you are down the rabbit hole, and the next thing you know, you've lost 30 minutes, and you're a goner. So that's one of the biggest online learning distractions or study tool distractions that we have. Now, if you are somebody that just you have to see that notification, then check it, give yourself, treat it like a hobby and check it every hour. Give yourself 10 minutes or put a little timer on that says, hey, go ahead and check your phone every 10 minutes, every hour. From a sport perspective, when going back to personality styles, I know, again, cricket, I'm using all these Australian and European sports. I'm not sure if the Americans even know what cricket is, but I know that athletes who are more extroverted personality, what they do is they use the noise of the crowd and what we call the external focus. But when the bowler turns around to bowl, or even let's even say a baseball pitcher, when they jump on that mound to actually pitch the ball, then we go from a broad external focus to a narrow internal focus from a sports perspective. So knowing who you are and knowing how much you need to absorb externally versus internally based on your personality is really important as it relates to a superpower of focus. So know who you are, so know what strategies you need and know what tools, the cause of your distractions. And then I've probably given you 3 strategies at least there, but let me give you a 4th just because I love Scotland. And that is, of course, anchoring and affirmations. So an anchor is a physical trigger, like your thumb, your index finger, and your middle finger. When you place them together, it helps you just come back to the present moment. So let's say you're reading an article, as you said, and you get distracted because it's triggered another thought. Boom, fire off your anchor and just say, I am here and now. All right. One of my tennis players, she's 250 WTA ranking. That's her actual affirmation. I am here and now. I'm here and now. Because as we know, in tennis, you have to play one point at a time. The same with running a marathon. The minute you start thinking about the marathon already being over, you're in trouble. You have to run it one step at a time. Another client I worked with, that was her affirmation. I am one step at a time. I am one step at a time, because that's how you complete a marathon. So there's 4 little strategies there, which hopefully one of those you found useful and others would have benefited from that question. Thank you so much, Geraldine. You're the best. Anyone else got any questions, or Jonathan we've got a few more minutes if anyone's wants to unmute or.
Hey, Emma.
Hey, Carol, how are you?
I'm good. You?
Great to see you.
Thanks. I've got someone who's all their life their primary thing is to try to please others. And that carries over onto the tennis court. They see someone feel bad, and the last thing that they're able to do is close out a match. It's like, at the point in time, they feel bad because the other people team or one are feeling bad. So, it's like, it's no big deal. But then they go home and will just lament about it forever. Okay. And so it's like, how do you change that when it's so deeply ingrained in a person's personality that their sole purpose in life is to please others?
Yeah.
Except on the tennis court, they don't want to, but they can't change it.
Yeah. I mean, it is definitely a superpower in many ways, of course. Having deep empathy is a superpower. So that's where my first thought, that's where I would begin, which is starting with all the positives of having empathy and understanding your opponent. And imagine if you deeply understood, and you could read body language and you can deeply understand who they are, perhaps then that can show you that, they're favoring they're running around their backhand all day because, you know, they're avoiding a weakness there. So how do you start to flip it into a superpower in saying, here are all the positives of having deep empathy for others? Now, so once you sort of go through those positives, then you definitely need a tool and a strategy to put in place there that then lets that go and be able to help focus in the moment. Again, anchoring and affirmation is one that comes to mind, to be able to get them in the present moment, just to play that point on its merits. Then after the match, if they're still ruminating, they're still going into that deep empathy of like, you know, I felt so bad, you know, that person thought that I made a bad line call and I really didn't, and I'm struggling to let it go because they're still thinking I'm a bad person, is journaling. So getting them to journal all of those thoughts, which really many of the thoughts that they're having are not real, because that person's probably not given it one extra bit of thought that they're a bad person. But being able to journal that would be number one, and then be able to help them reframe that paragraph. So they've gone from saying, you know, they think I'm a bad person because of that line call, and then we ran out of water and they thought my club didn't supply enough water, and all the, you know, the list goes on and on and on. Get them to reframe that into saying things like, every day is an opportunity for me to learn about different types of people, and I know that my club does its best to provide the services it needs, and I call openly and honestly, and I support my partner, and I know that everyone makes mistakes. You know, it's sort of reframing the story, because there's a story going on there that's actually not real. It's just a perception of reality.
Right.
So,
I mean, that's a conversation that we've had lots, and it comes down to I can't necessarily convince myself of it. She says that because she's a very, honest person. And, you know, we talk about reframing things, and it's like, well, it is what it is, you know, and it's like, nah, it's really interesting because it seemingly seems to be just on a tennis court.
Yep. So the other suggestion that comes to mind is potentially look at those other areas of her life where it's actually, again, she's able to differentiate what's going on, and maybe you can tap into that, because you just, you know, again, once the penny drops, and she's able to sort of, actually with this Scottish netball team, again, I've brought them up 3 times today, but we had this line on the court, and it was a white line, you know, like white line fever, right? So the minute that they would step over the line, they'd have to leave their, excuse my language here, Jonathan, but shit at the door, right? So they'd step over the line, and everything that was going on for them, like maybe all those stories, like, oh, you know, last time I played this person, they thought I made a bad call, blah, blah, blah. They have to leave that at the door. So when they stepped over the white line fever, as we called it, they had to just be in that moment. They had to respond to what was happening in that moment. So that would be some practical strategies that you can try. You know, use the gate, like when you enter the court or you enter a field, use the gate to, you know, and I used to also have a backpack full of like rocks, make them wear it, and then they take it off at the gate, right? So you have to leave all your stuff, at the gate, and then you can pick it up on your way back out, but no one ever picked it up on the way back out, because of course it was, you know, a metaphor. So, but thank you, Carol. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate that question. So you're the best.
Thank you. You are.
All right. Now there's Conrad in the house. I know Conrad's got a question. I know he always does. Hello, mate.
Good. I've got to ask one question. Excuse the noise. I'm on a court and I had a minute, so I had to tune in. But I've got a player who's very good. And when I say very good, I mean beating players in practice 2 points and above, or 1.5 points and above in practice sets. But going into competition, just can't bring it. Doesn't matter what we're doing. It's all coming from the outside. But when we're in practice, it's all coming from the inside. We're in the middle of tennis season here. What do you got for me, Emma? I need some nuggets of gold.
Okay, so the first thing that I would say is, are the match conditions exactly the same as the practice conditions? So whatever's whatever's going on for that person, like potentially even what's happening just prior to training. So the way that they are preparing prior to training versus prior to the match might be completely different because you can't see that. But I would be double checking what we call it a decision-making tote strategy in NLP, where we identify what the process is before they get to training. And then, of course, I'm into behavioral modeling. You replicate that exact behavior on match day. So you're replicating that. If that's what's working in training, then let's replicate that exactly the same. Now, if it is the same, they're doing exactly the same thing, then the next bit of research that relates to confidence is about emotional and physiological, what they call arousal in the psychology world. Thanks to my friend Julie G, who gives me always the latest research in sports psychology. And if you can then in that warm-up phase take care of what you need based on your personality, do you need high physiological and emotional arousal? Do you need the music to be Eye of the Tiger, boom, 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 right? Or do you need to have something that's a lot lower for that emotional arousal? And then your physiological state, a lot of people don't prepare the mind. And you think about open sports like tennis, like hockey. I know Centercourt has a lot of field hockey athletes. You've got a lot of lacrosse players. It's decisions happening like this. My great friend Judy Murray always says it's a think, move, hit sport. So many sports are like this, yet that physiological and emotional arousal state doesn't happen in the warm-up process. Hello, it has to happen. We have to warm that up. And so I'd be checking those strategies first. And then my third strategy, again, the one I love the most is anchoring and affirmations. As anyone's heard a webinar, I don't think I go a webinar without mentioning an anchoring and affirmation process to be able to get in the moment. Remember, an anchor is a physical trigger, and an affirmation is not, I am amazing, I am strong, I am brilliant. An affirmation is what keeps you in the moment during sport. So I am ready, I am now, I am here, I am present, I'm in the moment. It's not, I'm going to win this point. I've got, this point's mine, or I'm going to win this match. That's not how it works, which is different to I am statements, which we spoke about earlier. This is an affirmation that's keeping you in the moment. How did that sound?
Unbelievable. Thank you so much. I've got to run to a lesson. I'm going to apply that right now. And before I go, I've got to say, happy Coaches Day.
Oh, nice. Nice. I didn't even realize. Happy Coaches Day to all the coaches out there. Thank you, Conrad Singh, the CEO of Centercourt Tennis Academy. Really appreciate you. So Jonathan, I've got 3:58. I think it's a good time to wrap up. What would you say?
Yeah, I think that you've given us a great deal. You've given us some big picture stuff and some real techniques for every day too. I love it. It's been fantastic. I was just Googling your book.
I'm working on it. It's getting there. I promise.
It all starts with journaling, like you said.
Exactly. Exactly. You're my accountability buddy now. I appreciate that. And
I'm an English major and I really love a good book. So when come on now. Yeah.
Geraldine knows it's coming. So to everybody, I'm really, really grateful that you've invested 1 hour of your life. Remember that you'll never get back. So bronze, silver, gold, go for the game of life. And, really at the end of the day, always think about what's within your control as it relates to building your confidence layer by layer by layer. And thank you, everybody. A lot of gratitude. This has been a great I love the thumbs up. Robert's given me the thumbs up, even though I can't see you. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Paul from Down Under, for being on the call. We've got a lot of names here that are very familiar. And I just really appreciate everyone. I love all the gratitudes coming in the chat box as well. So appreciate it. Thanks, Kate, for checking in. You're the best. And thanks, Jonathan, and thank you to Centercourt. And we'll see you all again soon. Remember, 360. Jonathan, do you want to type it in the chat box just quickly? 360 at was it the Centercourt Club?
Yes. 360 at Centercourt Club.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mikey. Thank you for checking in. Great to see you smile. Glad to see you back in Florida. And thanks for yesterday. Fantastic. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate it. There's the email there if anyone's interested in the performance code, or at least let your players know about it. But it's definitely coming soon. I'm excited to bring it. So signing off. Remember, the ball is always in your court, everybody. Thanks, Jonathan. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Emma. Take care. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.